Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Simovic. I'm Chief Product Officer of our Customer Experience Applications here at Microsoft. It's really great to see how far technology has come so far, particularly with our CRM tools and this revolutionary tool that everyone's buzzing about, AI. And what does this mean for enterprises and their processes? I have the pleasure today of continuing this conversation. Joining me is Ray Wang and Liz Miller, both from Constellation Research. They're both leaders in the industry with decades of experience. They help businesses and leaders in these businesses, such as CROs and CMOs, improve their customer experience. So I have a bunch of questions for you guys today, and I thought it'd be great to have a conversation about what you're seeing in the industry. And I think I'm going to start with Ray. What does the future of AI mean for enterprises?
Well, we're about to enter a unique era where everything from optimization to simulation to the ability to actually orchestrate next best action, they're all happening right now. And what AI does is it takes the information and insights we have, it augments it with the skills that we have, and it produces something new. It produces something unique when it wants to, right? But it also has the power to help with compliance or meet regulatory requirements. It has the power of opening up things such as accessibility. It has the ability to think about what's important for our ability to find new insights, right? So all that planning is happening at that level. So I think AI is opening up a generation of new opportunities for everybody. And at the same time, it is equally scary because we also need to reflect the fact that with any new technology, those technologies are a reflection on humanity. And you can use tools for good and for evil. And so with this level of power, we have to go back to Peter Parker principles. We have to go out and try to do good with them. And with this level of great power comes great responsibility.
And I love what you're saying about just that responsibility. And that responsibility falls on companies like Microsoft, but also on the companies that are making that decision around AI. I'm curious, maybe Liz, what trends are you noticing with enterprises that hinder their ability to be productive and adopt this AI? And that would go to any of those personas around sellers, service agents, marketers.
I think the first one I keep seeing is this kind of fundamental misunderstanding, I think, of AI. I think a lot of people get their understanding of AI from movies, which is probably like the worst place we can get them, right? We're all sitting there like, Hal, open the pod bay doors. Frank's dead in the background. He's floating in space. And so we're really waiting. And it doesn't help when you have those very real conversations, but for, the purpose of salaciousness, we have to say, AI is going to take over the world. And if left unhindered, it's going to, kill us all and put us in a garbage chute. And so when you take the kind of the big headline and then you take the movie's understanding of AI, which at the end of the day was like the machines looked around and figured out that we were the problem, right? Like every single AI bad guy crunched all the data, right? They crunched all the data available and they came to one universal conclusion that people were the problem. And so when that's your foundation of belief, when you hear, hey, oh, by the way, we're going to implement all this AI in our organization. Isn't it going to be great? And it can do all these things. I think people's first instinct is to go to a place of worry and go to that place of fear that they are going to be replaced. They are going to be what sent out the pod bay doors. And I think what's happening and the kind of the trend that we're seeing now is the worries that we had over data. We believed that bots, we believed that automation, we believed that all the tools were going to save us. But we never stopped to think, did we have the right data? Did we have the right content? Did we have the right prompts? Did we have the right skills to actually unlock a lot of that technology? So the big trend I see kind of emerging right now, which is actually really exciting to see, which is learning from those mistakes, learning from those kind of fear-based roadblocks that we used to have over advanced technologies and beginning to chip away at those very specific productivity-led use cases where we can really apply AI, and even if it's a small, tiny corner, right? I think sales is a really great example. If we can have something pop up, let's take Viva Sales as an example. If it pops up in Outlook and lets you know, hey, did you know that if you could email, on all of your accounts where you emailed 3 days later, you had an 80% chance of a return phone call. That seller's like, thanks, Viva. Like, they're trying to give the computer a high five instead of running away. So I think the biggest trend is kind of shifting our mindset around from a fear-based application of AI to an opportunity-based application.
I love that. And that really is around the productivity, like you said. Are there any kinds of misconceptions around that you're seeing? Just, you talk to a lot of customers, or companies, I should say, our customers who are asking, questions that might be, they might have a misconception about just what it can do, or maybe around security or compliance.
I get a lot of security questions, and Ray, I'm sure you get a ton of other questions as well. So I'll take this first, but I think Ray's going to have a lot of great examples. I think the question that I get a lot of is security based, right? So where does the data go? Is my data that trains the model also then training everyone else's model? This comes up a lot in very sensitive organizations like finance, like healthcare. There's also a misperception and this assumption that this is just a better spying tool. So from a supervisor's perspective, I've been getting asked a lot, especially in the contact center space and in the service space, like, are my people going to feel like this AI is spying on them, right? Are they going to want to engage with it, or is it another thing for them to worry about? So I think the security issue, both from a personal use, like that self-determined security, is an issue. But I think enterprise security is also that issue, because you've got the twofold problem of, we're now seeing AI being turned, like Ray said, for bad. Right? We're now seeing exploits. We're now seeing bad actors intentionally using AI to create more sophisticated breaches, to create these different pieces of code where you can now churn out, these codes, like infinite numbers of this. So we're seeing a lot of questions around that, but I think they're the right questions to ask out loud, right? You have to ask those questions out loud. What do you think, Ray?
No, it's definitely true. And one of the things that we ask people to think about when they look at AI and automation that comes with it is really to ask themselves 4 questions. When can you trust full, intelligent automation and the AI, right? And in some cases, you have enough data, you have enough information and insights to have that level of trust, and you can get to a full level of automation, right? But that's not all cases. Sometimes we don't have enough data. Sometimes we don't have information or insights for that to happen. So then when can we augment the machine with a human, right? To get to a higher level of confidence, right? 70, 80% confidence level for self-help. Okay, that's not too bad if you're doing customer service and good support. But if it's self-help and support for healthcare, oh no, we probably need 99% accuracy and with improve that level of trust, right? And so that requires training. That requires us to kind of work with machines and kind of find the exceptions. Why did you break the rule? Why did you do something different? And in a lot of cases, we can augment the human with the machine and get to a pretty good result by giving you more information and insights, speed up the process. But there are times where we want friction. We want a human there. We want that human touch. We want a human in the loop. And so sometimes we want to decide when a human is in the business process or in that customer experience piece. And so I think that's going to be one of the hesitations is, do we have enough data, right? A lot of people think like, oh, wait, I can just pop this in and I've got a Copilot. Everything's going to be fine. But let's take something like sales, right? In sales, if we want to have the ability to, do pipeline review, okay, yeah, we probably do a pretty good job with pipeline review. Scheduling a meeting, okay, we put a good suggestion. Install base analysis, might a little bit more work. Forecasting, okay, we're gonna have more people look at this for a little bit. But it does take time to train things. And so that notion that we can do it right away and we'll be great, that has to go away a little bit, because we also need training time to make things better. So I think that's going to be one of the things that people have to figure out is, do we have enough data to solve the problem with the confidence level that will create trust in the system?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also adding to that, right? It's also what is unique to that business for them to stay competitive, and where do they focus on, what is that data differentiation for them? I completely see the same thing. And when we're speaking about data, I have a question for both of you. depending on who wants to answer, about this marriage of data and activation, meaning like customer data platforms and marketing activation together. What is this combination? What's the power of that? Why is it significant for businesses?
Liz, all yours.
Ray heard CDP and just went, nope, not Liz. No, listen, CDPs are always a touchy subject with me, mainly because I think at the dawn of when CDPs were introduced to, let's say, a marketer's mindset, they were really billed as kind of a marketing toy for marketing things. And that's probably the worst way you can think about one. I think in today's modern thinking, and my hope is that if we can start, everyone start fresh today and move forward, is that a customer data platform is truly that. It is a platform, it is a space where all of this customer data that really has been felt impossible, right, to bring into one space can be normalized, harmonized, unified into one kind of unified corpus, right? So that we can pull things in that may have originated in the call center and actually start to look at that in relation to things that came out of a marketing campaign, so that you're truly looking at the customer and not just through a transactional lens, an operational lens, a marketing lens, right? It really puts the focus on the customer and the totality of their journey, experience, engagements, including the engagements they chose not to have. And I think that's where the power of the CDP comes in, because if we just look at it as a marketing toy or a CX toy or the thing that the CIO is happy you had because they didn't want to put all that data into their data lake anyway, right? Like however we want to brand what the CDP is, the reality is it tells us as much about what the customer did as what the customer didn't do, because we can start to look at those blank spaces. And I think where I get really excited about that moment where something like a CDP and all of the collaboration tools, all of the AI, and the totality of the stack. I mean, even if we just look at kind of what you can achieve across marketing, sales, and service through their individual technology stacks, now you have this amazing composable decoupled data layer in that CDP that brings it all together and can inform every one of those pieces while also leaving enough room at the table for everyone else who's part of CX. That could be, who's in HR, who's in operations, for commerce folks. If you're talking about CX and commerce, you're not just talking about the marketing sales, you're talking about e-commerce, you're talking about everyone in the warehouse. The CDP becomes that place where all of those different pieces of data create room for everyone to actually pull that intelligence about the customer. But to Ray's earlier point, we haven't had the capacity to understand how all of those pieces interlink together until we could start to apply AI on top of it. Now we can ask AI that crazy question of like, how many customers did we lose because we sent out that ad and we didn't have the product available? Like, we can ask that question now.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the biggest things that's happening with the CDP is it allows us to start the question around next best action, right? CDP plus marketing plus those insights. That's really where we can actually improve a couple things. One, really what we call dynamic scene generation, the ability to bring the data, bring the business process, bring a UX, and deliver mass personalization at scale, right? So what happens next, right? The second thing is really the ability to think about that mass personalization at scale actually creates an event. And all these collection of events actually builds what we call a business graph. And the back of that business graph starts to give us more insights over time, right? And so the network effects of actually every action actually gives more insights, which then feed the models, which then improve your ability to get to personalization, or back to our earlier point, which is making better decisions, right? And having those types of decisions and decision velocity becomes important because now you can actually improve the speed of actions, improve the speed of automation, and also augment where it makes sense for people who need copilots.
Yeah, and something you said there, Ray, that I'd love to click in a little further on is, how employees, how their jobs can change if they have those insights so they can make better decisions. What are you seeing as far as what companies are looking for to help their employees make good decisions around the customers?
Yeah, I mean, great example, right? Take customer service, right? Crawlers inside an internal system and a knowledge base is going to make it a lot easier for a contact center agent to help with self-help, right? Or just even listening into the conversation, they can actually make 15 suggestions and start narrowing it down as the conversation continues. It really saves time for the contact center base. We can also do things like augmenting case histories and jumping on that much quicker by bringing in information, insights from other cases and finding patterns and quickly alerting folks that there's a problem, and actually minimizing the impact of an issue before it becomes widespread. In commerce, I mean, simple things by figuring out, massive A/B testing on product catalogs that happen right away based on people's reactions would probably change the nature of the catalog, create dynamic pricing optimization, which can happen at the same time, and also give you opportunities to get immediate feedback on, oh, wait, this product is pretty lousy. Maybe we should start slashing discounts, like slashing pricing here, or, getting ready for returns because this isn't going to work out, right? All those kind of things are going to be accelerated and pulled forward so that, it makes the employee's life a lot easier, and it gives them kind of a framework so that they can do more and be more helpful.
So there's a lot. There's so many different applications of AI. I hear it across marketing, sales, and service. I guess for a company just getting started with this, where do they start? Like, what's the recommendation? What do you turn on first? I mean, it's a little overwhelming to turn on everything all at once. So is there like a good place to start, in your opinion?
Ray, you go first. This is me. I'm like, you go.
I think it's important to just start with places where you can figure out automation, right? Simple things to make your life easier. If you're doing highly repetitive tasks and that's something that you find a pattern and you're comfortable with it, start the automation process. See how comfortable you're with that. Test out the algorithms to make sure that making sure that you've covered all the bases, and if there's any exceptions that you capture them earlier. The other piece that's important is not just on the automation side, is trying to figure out where are places where there's lots of volume, where things that are overwhelming, where it's something that it's no longer human to do, where you have not only the repetitiveness, but also the fact that it's a lot of the same thing over time, right? And it's not at a human scale, right? If you start with those two areas, you'll find lots of opportunities. And then over time, you can actually refine them to things that are a little bit more complex, right? That are strung out into different, multiple sets of customer processes, things that cut across different departments that normally wouldn't have level orchestration. And then I would say, then you can actually get it to a point where, you can try new models or try new theories, right? Where you can run simulations, and then you can feel much more comfortable over time. But it's not just the process of you being comfortable, it's the process of the team being comfortable. And it's also the process of your customers and stakeholders being comfortable that something is being deployed. So the first time you bump into a chatbot or to a voice bot, you're going to feel a little bit hesitant, right? And you're going to want to test it to make sure that it's accurate or it's capturing your information or insights. So you may have noticed, like, if you're going through drive-thrus lately, what you're talking into in the drive-thru is not necessarily another human, right? And if they don't get the order right, suddenly, oh wait, someone jumps in, and it's like someone pops in and it's a human. Wait, what's going on? I thought I was talking to a human, right? And so you get the exception base that's actually starting to happen. And I think people are getting used to those types of form factors. So,
yeah, I think also, what I'm feeling that is really beneficial for me is just taking care, like you said, a lot of that automation of things that are drudgery. So taking notes during meetings. Hey, if AI can do that on my behalf, yes, I'm super happy. Or just scheduling, sending follow-up emails, things that can help me do it faster where I could have written it, but it can be captured. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for that automation. I guess for larger enterprises, and I talk to a lot of companies too, but more from a Microsoft perspective, I do have companies asking me, like, do I need an AI governance role in my team? Is this something that companies should be doing or thinking about when they're implementing this?
There are a bunch of responsible AI ethics that we kind of talk about. They're level one, what we call AI ethics. And the first part is maybe you don't have governance in place, but at least make sure the algorithms are transparent, places you can kind of test them. We make decisions based on bias, and it's important to have bias to make a decision, but unwanted bias is bad. So if you're discriminating against, left-handed people with purple hair and you didn't realize it, well, okay, let's go fix that. But make sure it's explainable. But how we fix it, we have to reverse and unlearn things. The ability to unlearn things is going to be very important because you don't want to ingest something that might not be your data. You don't want to be in a situation where, you've made a mistake and discovered it and you can't correct it. Once you have that in place, then training becomes very important, right? We got to train these systems to be more precise, right? And get to confidence level that you're happy with. And once the training has occurred, at some point, you also may want to, get back to Liz's point, have a human in the loop, right? Because, the AIs will discover that, humans are lazy, they're forgetful, they don't always follow processes, make lots of mistakes, right? Never consistent with their policies, right? And so the AI will get a little annoyed and say, what's going on? Maybe we should take over. No, but in all honesty, having a human in the loop is important, and figuring out when you put that in place will help.
And I think governance is going to take a lot of different forms. And I think that's going to be also something that we as organizations are going to have to both learn and unlearn almost in parallel paths. You have the very real kind of it is coming AI regulatory bodies that will emerge. There are plenty of proposals already underway across Europe. The great assumption right now is that the AI, all of the AI documentation and all of the governance models that are coming out of the EU right now will largely be copied and replicated here in the US. There isn't a whole lot of desire to go back down that GDPR, CCP, like alphabet soup of trying to figure out data. So it is coming. So it very well could be that large enterprises of X number of employees and above will need to have an officer within their enterprise that is charged with holding that transparency. So to what Ray was talking about, this is going to be someone who their job is to ensure that there are answers for every single possible decision that can be made about AI. So it's important to start understanding that that is going to have to live someplace. It's not just going to be kind of a nebulous, everyone's responsible for it. I do think, though, that advanced enterprises who really want to get ahead of this, and I would honestly recommend get ahead of this, as the please go and do this, which is the reality is that AI regulation and data regulation are happening in two separate pockets, and they are being hosted by largely two separate groups of people. But any one of us, and we've heard it multiple times today in just our conversation together, there is an inextricable link and tie between the security and the governance of data and the security and the ethics of AI. Those two things have to be connected conversations. So if someone is going to become the officer or the person in charge, or the team in charge of AI governance, AI ethics, also make that team either the same group that is looking at data or tied at the hip with the group that's looking at data, because we have to be able to explain both the answer and how the algorithm got there, but we also have to answer why specific pools of data and why a specific corpus of data, a model, why was that tapped? How did that come together? And what's the lineage of that data? And that answer has to be almost as transparent as why did the model come up with that answer?
No, very, very, very good point, Liz. And I think from just that trust platform, like understanding how the entire architecture works, but then also that trust that we're not using customer data to train the models. I think all of that is important to all companies around the world. So I'm going to ask one last question, and it's really around what would you want our listeners of this conversation to take away? And those are for the CMOs and the CSOs of the world. What's the one thing that they should take away if they're not doing it already?
Go, Liz.
Oh boy!
30 seconds or less.
Wow. No, the one takeaway I would love for them to have is to start today. Don't wait until tomorrow. And Linda, you had mentioned this of hey, from a Microsoft perspective, it's as easy as saying, hey, I'm ready to flip the switch. Flip the switch. It's going to be okay, right? The machines are not here to jettison us out the door, but flip the switch with intention. Have one thing in mind. If it means that one person in one team is going to be more productive because they had something taken off their plate, make that your goal for AI today, and then keep moving forward with it. But if you wait until it's perfect, if you wait until all the data is ready, if you wait until all your team is comfortable with AI, you will not start. You will be way behind the curve, and that fear factor is going to be bigger. So if there's one thing I hope people take away is that it's accessible, and it is something that you can turn on. And yes, you can experiment with it. Just don't take too long.
Yeah, I'd quickly say, look, think about the business outcomes you're trying to achieve and see if actually AI is a place where you can actually make an exponential difference. If the answer is no, try it somewhere else, right? To get started, as Liz said.
Yeah, I love the advice. And thank you so much, Ray and Liz, for your time. And thank you for having this conversation with me today.
Excellent. Thanks, Linda.